there! In this training, we're going to learn how to make the very beautiful and dainty carnations. Carnations come in some beautiful colors. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make some pink ones. And they are great as filler flowers. They're great on their own, on top of a small cake. They're very special to me. They were my mom's favorite flower, and I used to always make her cakes that had carnations on them, and she just absolutely loved that. And then any birthdays and Mother's Days, I always made sure that the arrangements, the flower arrangements that I would give her had carnations in them because they were her very favorite flower. And now I'm going to show you how to make these beautiful little flowers. All right, to make our carnations, we're going to need specific cutters, and just be sure to download your supply list. We have here carnation cutters, and these are PME cutters. Now we have a large, a medium, and small. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to make the large ones. I'm going to do the medium and the small ones. So we'll put the large one back. And then we will need some 28 gauge wire, green wire that is. And I have cut them in fourths. So you want to cut them down to four pieces each. And then we're going to get our pliers, our very thin pliers here, and we're going to place a hook at the top of each. So you want to get hooks on them. Okay, now these carnation cutters, they have lots and lots of little ridges, and we're going to use them to ruffle out. All right, now before we get started on the flowers, we're going to need to make some buds. So you want to use the color that you're going to be doing the carnations in, and we're going to be doing pink carnations. So I made up some gum paste in pink, and just trying to get it so there's not so much clutter here for you. All right, and then we're going to get just a pinch. All right, so we're just going to get a little dab of gum glue, and we're going to put it on the tip. All right, you really don't need any of this right now. All right, and then you want to place the gum paste on top of the floral wire where the hook is. And then you just want to form it around and make kind of like a Q-tip. Okay, so then just do as many as you are going to need for your project. And we'll place them here. And let's do another one. And you just want to put a dab of gum glue on it, not a lot, because you don't want it to get all gummy and icky. So, and then you want to pinch around the sides if you need to. Put a little bit of cornstarch on your fingers, pinch it around the bottom, and then just shape it into kind of like a Q-tip. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, and then you have another one. Now we need to let these dry before we can put flowers on them. So since they're very small, you can give them about an hour, hour and a half. Okay, so once they dry, then we'll come back and we'll start making the flowers. All right, now we have made our little centers, and they have dried for several hours. They actually dried overnight because I just didn't get a chance to get back here, so they dried overnight for me, so they are plenty dry. All right, so now we're going to use one of our cutters. When you are making carnations, they are not like some flowers where you need to make the larger petals for the outside and the smaller ones from the inside. When you're making carnations, you want to use the same size cutter for throughout the whole flower. So, excuse me, we're going to be making smaller ones and we're going to be making medium-sized ones. And these are the medium-sized ones that we're going to start out with. All right, so I'm going to roll out my fondant. I preconditioned the fondant, and we're going to roll it out, and you want to roll it out fairly thin. Typically for flowers, I use my pasta machine, but I don't think it's necessary for this flower. I think we can roll it out thin enough. Oops. And you want to be pretty thin, but not so thin that you're not going to be able to rough out the edges. So we have, let's see, this is about the thickness right here. It's probably about 1/16 of an inch maybe. All right, so we're going to cut out a bunch of these, and you want to press it in and then just kind of slide it around. And you want to just smooth out the edges, and you can pop out the flower like that. And another one. Oops, sorry for the shaking of the table. Didn't mean to do that. And the mount, I have my mount on my table, and if I'm doing a lot of shaking here, then it's going to shake that mount. Just cut out as many as you can. Carnations are typically about 2 to 3 layers, maybe even more. This one seems a little thick. However, we're going to thin out the edges. All right, so I'm going to get one more. Okay, and we'll roll this up and put it back in the bag. Okay, now you want to get your flower protector and put the flower, all but one flower in there. But one petal, I should say. All right, so these are protected so they don't dry out. And we are going to use just one petal at a time. Now, we're going to be thinning out these edges, and with all these little cuts, we're going to make it very ruffly. So I don't know if ruffly is a word, but that's what I'm going to use today. Okay, so you can either do this with a toothpick and ruffling back and forth, or I use the plastic ball tool that has kind of a curve onto it. And so we're going to use that. I am anyway. And then you just want to ruffle the edges. Actually, I'm going to go this way. And you go around. Whoops. Sometimes they will stick, and if they do, add a little bit of cornstarch to them so they don't stick. Because it's okay if they tear a little bit, but you don't want them to be constantly tearing. And you just want to soften it and frill it. Just the ends. And you don't want to blend these in too much. You want to try to get each individual piece and frill out. We're just doing this to the ends. And it's sticking a little bit, so I'm going to douse my balling tool with cornstarch. And it's okay if it sticks a little bit because it kind of helps with the frilling look. Okay, now for this one piece right here, we're going to fold it over. And what I like to use for something like this is a water pen. And what you do is you fill this part up. It comes unscrewed. You fill this part up with water, and then you put the lid on it, screw it back on, take the cap off, and it's like a pen. And you just squeeze a little bit and the water comes up to the top, and you have water to help act like an edible glue. So you can either use your edible glue or you can use water for this project right here, which I'm going to use water. And I'm going to I'm not going to put water around the frills. You don't want them to stick to each other, just the center. Okay, then we're going to take one of our buds, and we are going to get a cosmetic sponge with a hole in it. We're going to place our petal right in the center of that, and then we're going to take our bud and we're going to push it through, and then you can take the cosmetic sponge off at this point, and then you want to bring it up and have these meet, kind of like a taco. Just have them meet. Okay, and then you're going to get just put water going up the center or down the center for that matter, and across to the left side, and making sure you don't get it on the frills. And then we're going to bring this up and attach that. And then we're going to turn it around to the other side and do the same thing, up the center, down the center, and to the left. And then we're going to bring this side up. Okay, and now we're going to shape it. We're just going to shape it around. Ugh, take my glasses off, I can see better. There we go. Some people put glasses on to see better. I take mine off to see better. All right, and then you just want to kind of play around with it, manipulate it a little bit. All right, and then you want to get your center, and I use my Dresden tool, and I just kind of pull the petals apart a little bit. If they're sticking, you want to pull them apart. You want to open them. And there you have your first layer of carnation petals. All right, so you have your first center. Ideally, you want to let them dry a little bit, maybe about 20 minutes to a half an hour. Now this is a very bright pink. Typically I start out a little bit lighter, but I wanted these carnations to really pop. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Whoops, we're going to use this side right here. And once they've set a little bit, even though they are covered, they will be easier to work with. When they're very fresh, when the gum paste is very fresh, it tends to stick more. Like that. And again, if you get too much sticking, then you just want to douse the whole flour with a little bit of cornstarch. Just not too much, because if you have too much cornstarch on it, and then the flour is not going to stick to itself. Hey, we're having a lot of stickiness on this guy. All right, you know what? I think I'm going to douse it with a little bit of cornstarch, just so it's not tearing too much. There we go. Much better. You want to ruffle it all the way around. Make sure the ends are very thinned out and ruffled. All right. Now we're going to get some water in the center, or edible glue, and we're going to put it on the cosmetic sponge with a hole in it. and get our center and put the center through. Okay, and then you don't want to push it through too much, because then it's going to come through the bottom and then it's not going to stick as well. All right, so we're going to pull these back up again, and then we're going to go down one side and then to the left, bring it around and up, turn it around, do the same thing, and bring that one up. And then you want to shape the bottom. Just shape it out. Make sure the gum paste is sticking to the wire. And then say if you have a piece right here that keeps coming out, you can add a little bit of water there, or edible glue, and then just adhere it. Okay, now once you have the entire thing adhered, then you can use your Dresden tool and just start separating any petals that have stuck together, because you want your carnation to be very full. Okay, so now we have another center. All right, so since I'm doing 3 layers of each, so I'm going to need 6 more petals. I have 4, so let's get 2 more made. And then after I make 2 more, while the flowers are drying, I'm going to make petals in the smaller size. Okay, the flowers have dried a little bit, so let's add another layer. And what we're going to do, I'm actually going to put a little bit more cornstarch on this guy. It seems a little sticky. Get it nice and ruffling. Make sure you get the ruffles nice and full. And you want to separate each one of those little ridges into their own little ruffle. The more you separate, the more ruffling you will have. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit more over here. There we go. All right, now we're going to put edible glue or water around the center. Grab one of our flowers, place the petal on the center of the sponge, push it through, And then what you want to do is bring it up this way and up this way. And you can take your cosmetic sponge off. What that does is it gives it a little start to get attach it to the rest of the flower. And then you get the bottom piece and you just kind of pinch it around. So you want to get that pinched around. If your petals are opening up more than you want them to, just add a little dab of edible glue or water and bring them up a little bit more. There you go. All right, so they're all attached the way I want them to be attached. And then we're going to add one more layer to this flower. Oop. Go around to each marking. You want to make sure that you do each one of these markings individually, and then that will make your carnation much fuller. Add some edible glue, put it on the cosmetic sponge, and get our flower again. This is the one that we just put another layer on, and this is going to be the final layer. I'm going to add altogether 3 layers of petals. Okay, then we push up, turn it, push up. You can even bring it up, down, upside down. Take the cosmetic sponge off, and then you want to just bring it up. You want to make sure that you have a base down here so you have a place for the calyx to go. All right, and make sure it's adhered to the wire. There you go. And then we're going to get our drying rack, and we're going to dry these for maybe about 20 minutes to a half an hour upside down. And by upside down, it will help keep the flower petals from coming outward. You don't want them to come outward. You want them to come pretty close to the flower itself. So we'll dry them for about a half an hour upside down, and then you can put them upright for the rest of the drying time. I would dry these at least 2 to 3 hours before we start putting the calyxes on. So we're going to hang this upside down. All right, I'm going to be moving on to the rest of the flowers, putting in all 3 layers of petals, and then we will get started making our calyx. All right, now that our flowers are finished, we are going to make some calyxes. Now the carnation flower has an elongated calyx, so we're going to use a technique called the Mexican hat. And so with this technique, you're not just rolling out the fondant and then cutting out calyxes and putting them on. The Mexican hat technique creates a more elongated calyx. So we're going to take a piece of gum paste, and the carnation has a more darker calyx to it. So I've made some gum paste in a darker color, and we're going to use a small calyx cutter. This is a PME cutter, and it's approximately an inch wide altogether. So I have a piece here. So we're going to dust our board. You want to roll your gum paste in a ball, and then once you have it completely smooth, it's not completely smooth yet, so I'm going to roll it a little bit longer. Okay, so we have a nice smooth ball. Now we're going to roll it into kind of a cone shape. So you want it as a cone, just like this. Now you're going to place it down on the table, and you're just going to flatten it out a little bit with your fingers. Now once you have it flattened out with your fingers, then you're going to get a small cell pin, and we're just going to use it as a roller, and we're going to roll it out more. And you want to get this nice and thin. And as the name of this technique says, it's like a Mexican hat. So you want to get the flat part nice and thin. Okay, I think we're good here. And then you want to take your cutter, and you want to make sure that the hat top part, this part right here, will fit through the cutter. And I have a feeling this is not going to. So we need to thin this out a little bit more. Roll it up. And then we'll just kind of thin this here on the end so it'll fit through. For very small flowers, you just need a very small calyx. All right, so now we're going to get our cutter, and we're going to make sure we center it and cut out a piece. And then we have to just make sure it's all nice and clean. And then you want to push out. Take my glasses off so I can see better. You want to very gently push it out of the cutter. Just kind of give it a little push to start it. Sometimes in the smaller cutters like this, they need a little help coming out. So there we go. All right, so now let me put this away so it doesn't dry out. All right, so now we have an elongated calyx. All right, so then what I like to do to make these curl up a little bit and thin them out, you can either use your finger or you can put it down on the pad, but you get the Dresden tool of the veining in Dresden, and you just kind of press it inward. It's actually better to do on the pad. Press it inward, turn it, press it inward, press it inward, and one more. There we go. All right. Then you want to just press inward with a round tool. You can use a ball tool or the end of a paintbrush if it's round. And just be sure that you dip it in cornstarch so it doesn't stick. And then just bring it through. And then this will help the flower go through easier. Okay, then you want to take a little bit of edible glue and you put, that's a little bit too much. And then you put a little bit of edible glue down in the center and on each of the petals there. And then you get your flower and you push your flower through the center. And then you bring it up. And then you just kind of go around, get your cornstarch on your fingers so it doesn't stick to you, and just shape it around the floral wire and the flower. And there, see, you have an elongated calyx, which is characteristic of a carnation. Okay, so I'm going to finish the rest of my flowers, and then we will start working on the next step. All right, our final part that we need to do for these beautiful little carnations are give them a little bit of life. We're going to color them and then steam them. So we're going to use American Beauty. That is a color that, because they are a very rich pink, American Beauty is just the right shade to really make them pop. Because there's so many ruffles in here, you really want to be careful about putting too much pressure on them. So all you're going to need to do is just lightly brush across the top. You want a medium bristle flat brush, nothing that's too firm, because if it's too firm, it's going to break the beautiful petals here. And this is giving the flower just a little bit of color. Just popping the tips, that's all you want. You just want the tips to be popped. There we go. And it just gives it a little bit more color. So you just want to brush it across the top very gently. And that's what I love about doing that for the carnations. It just gives the ruffles a little bit more pop. Okay, now we are finished with the pink, and now we're just going to brush a little bit of green on the bottom side of the calyx. So I have here, this is prairie green. It's kind of a medium green, and you can experiment. You can use a darker green if you'd like, or you can bring a little bit more color to it and use a lighter green. All right, so now we have our flowers are complete, and now we're going to give them a quick burst of steam. I have my steamer here all ready to go. And that's it. That's all you need to do. And they are ready. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed making the carnations, and I would love to see your flowers, your carnations, whether you put them in an arrangement with other flowers or whether you put them separately on top of a cake, or you just want to take pictures of the carnations that you've made. Please feel free to share photos of what you have made in our Facebook group. Bye for now.